Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to Sparkle on Substack with me, Claire Venus. I'm here with Molly today, and I'm super excited to chat to Molly about all things Substack. Molly has got a really unique approach to the way that she holds her Substack platform and now her membership, and I'm super excited to understand more about Molly's process. I've been connected to Molly for a good while. I feel like maybe even over a year, maybe 18 months or so. I remember just being completely enchanted by Molly's description of where she lives and how she spends her days, and just being a huge fan from the off. So welcome, Molly.
Thank you, Claire. I'm really happy to be here with you. I've also been following you for a long time, so it's an honour to be on your podcast.
Oh, that's so nice. And so but we're not that far away, really. We're probably about 3 hours or so away
Yeah,
from each other, maybe a bit longer. And it is
down the
very
road.
foggy outside today in Northumberland. What's your view like?
Yeah, it's lifted a bit, but yeah, it's quite an overcast day today, but not too bad. Not
Yeah,
too
we
bad.
we feel like we're sort of enduring the winter by the time we get to February in Northumberland. We're like, anytime there was the blue sky day, which was
I
yesterday, we're
know.
just like, thank goodness, this is amazing.
I
So for
know.
the people that don't know about you and your work and haven't stumbled across your beautiful YouTube channel or your Substack, do you want to just introduce who you are and where you are in the world?
Of course. So, hi everyone, I'm Molly. I live and work in the Scottish Highlands. So, I'm currently in our tiny home. So, me and my partner both live in a tiny home that well, I say we built, he built. I'm not going to take the credit. And I'm full time on my online creator. So I have my Substack and I also have my YouTube, and both are essentially me sharing my life, but especially how I try and live slowly and sustainably. So the kind of things I tend to talk about is stuff like nature, obviously living in the Scottish Highlands, that's on my doorsteps, that's great to share, but also stuff like books, vegan cooking, and anything that kind of comes under that umbrella, really.
Beautiful. And so when you started your Substack, Molly, where else were you on the internet? Did you have other social media channels? Did you have another presence anywhere? Did you have a YouTube already? Just if you could give us the timeline, that would be super interesting.
Of course, yeah. So I think I started sort of creating online back in 2020. It was kind of a lockdown project. I had a bit more time, and I always had dithered about starting a blog, and actually that's where I started. So I just launched my own website and Wix and started blogging, very intermittently, nothing, just as a little bit, almost just for me to start with, and it grew a little bit of a following. So I decided to then change up my Instagram and change that to promote my blog specifically, and that's when it really started taking off in terms of getting like a lot of followers. So that was probably in 2021 that started taking off a bit more. And then in 2022, I started my YouTube in the spring kind of time. And then I carried on doing all three for a while. So I had my blog, I had my Instagram, and then I have my YouTube. And then in August 2022, I decided to launch my Substack. And at the same time, decided to come off Instagram for a whole multitude of reasons, mostly because it was taking a huge amount of time and it was taking more time away from my writing, and that's kind of was my first love, was the writing part, and I wasn't doing enough. I'd actually stopped blogging for weeks or months because I just didn't have the time personally. The stuff I was doing on Instagram was taking too much time, especially as I was working full time as well. So yeah, so I launched my Substack in August 2022, dropped my Instagram but kept my YouTube, and since that point I've continued with both. And then in August last year 2023 I went full-time on my business. So I had dropped part-time where I worked as a wildlife conservationist for the RSPB for a year or so, and then I left completely and been doing this full-time ever since.
Wow, what a journey. And I love that you had some experimental time with, if I show up on this platform, it feels like this. And if I'm over here, it's
Yeah.
taking this energy. And you kind of came back to center in that and said, no, no, this was what feels true to me. This is what feels good. I'm going to focus my energies here. And how long before you knew, okay, this is working for me? And obviously that can mean anything, can't it? Like working can be, this is working in terms of it feels really balanced. Working is in it's bringing me enough money, or working is in it just feels really good and it feels like people are finding me and I'm kind of having conversations. How long before you knew, okay, like these are the two places I'm going to put my energy, and I'm going to leave my job?
I think from the beginning of 2023 I'd hoped that I'd be able to, by the end of the year, to be able to leave my job, but at that point I was making some money, but it wasn't enough to live on at that time. So I've managed, the first thing I was conscious of making sure I had enough of my savings, because when you work as a creator online, like you know, the finance side of it can be a bit unpredictable. But to be honest, even at that point, I think it's a confidence thing as well. I think I was like, oh, is it going to be enough? Both were growing at a decent rate. My YouTube, when I first started, is the usual, like, few people watch. And I found it quite interesting. Not many people came over from Instagram. I always struggled to move. The same with my blog. I always struggled to move people off of Instagram anywhere else. So it was quite a steady, you know, few views, and then I had one video that went a bit viral and I managed to get monetized 3 months in to my YouTube, but it still wasn't a huge number of people. So I think it was really only like a few months before, or like midway through 2023, that I was like, okay, I'm making just enough, I've got savings. And I was completely burnt out trying to do both, because my job as a wildlife conservationist was, even though it was part-time, it just had a lot, you needed to put a lot into it. It's quite an emotional investment as well. So I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never gonna do it. So I took the plunge, and it's been great. It's been really great.
Yeah, and it's not even that long, is it? It's like we're recording in February 2024. So Molly's talking about last year, you know, it was just last year. And all of that, you know, from the outside and reading your work and looking in, it all felt very measured and very sensible and very well thought through. Like, I just remember feeling that for you and feeling like this is something that Molly is really passionate about doing and actually wants to live a life on her terms. And there's this other bit of the picture that when you are in the employed working world, it can be lots of things. It can be a really stable place to be, and it can be really rewarding, especially if you're doing work that you're really passionate about and that you really care about. But there can be a whole load of dynamics where you're kind of splitting yourself in two. So I do this piece of work over here, and then I've got a whole other thing here that nobody could understand, I guess. It's like different, isn't it? A different way of being, a different way of working and spending your time.
Definitely. I mean, it was very much like I had almost like two lives. I had like what I had to be as a conservationist, which was quite like science heavy, as understandably, and then I had obviously this whole creative side, that I'd kind of stopped thinking as myself as creative for a very long time. I think I decided I wanted to work in conservation when I was like 12, 13. And from that point, I was very focused on science. So I just sort of didn't have any creative hobbies right through, you know, teenage 20s, that kind of thing. And it was just but basically my writing, which I think started getting inspired again because I started reading again, which again was something else I loved to do when I was younger. And I was like, oh, I'd like to write. So yeah, it was really nice to get back into my creativity, and at this point in my life anyway, that's something that feels more natural to me now rather than the kind of science heavy. And I think for me it was actually more, or equally as important, the kind of lifestyle. I really wanted to be self-employed. That just suited me. I just like the flexibility of it, and yeah, it means I can live a kind of slower pace of life, which I was really craving.
Yeah, for sure. It's fascinating. And over on your Substack, obviously I read Molly's work, and so I know this, and I know that you publish on a Monday, and you have typically, I think, published on a Monday for quite a long time, every Monday.
Yeah, I think probably just from the start.
The consistency is like,
yeah.
There's Molly's piece. Okay, I'll read that later. That's great.
Yeah, no, I try. I mean, I think I've missed the odd one obviously in there, and I like to take a little bit of time off over in December over like Christmas time, but yeah, I pretty much have consistently published, and I found that quite easy to keep up, because I think I always have a lot of ideas, and I do a lot of the prep fairly far advanced, so I'd like to plan my content a month or so in advance. And at the beginning, I think I was linking my YouTube and my Substack a bit more. So I'd start my YouTube. If I was doing something on YouTube, I maybe would write something on Substack. Now I'd say it's a little bit of that, but I've shifted to Substack comes first and then YouTube. So they're slightly different in terms of my emphasis on things and the kind of audience I've got on both of them.
And I suppose, although there's crossover, there will be unique audiences on both as well. You probably sense that, don't you? Like the people who want to watch whatever it is that you're putting out on your YouTube. And I have watched some of Molly's videos. They're very good. They're very soothing. You know, it's just like, I'm going to take you with me. I'm off to a bookshop, or I'm going to prepare lunch. This is what I'm doing. It's very, very soothing content. And I always think it feels wholesome to watch, but it also feels like, oh, that permission slip to slow down. You know, I've got 2 kids. life's busy with the children, and we also have that slower pace of life here in Northumberland, but not the same amount of slow that Molly kind of makes me feel like it's possible. It's really enchanting, Molly, actually. It's a real skill set you've got over there.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think when I started my YouTube, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to share particularly. I was taking inspiration from some creators that I'd followed. I watched YouTube forever. Like, I've always really enjoyed YouTube. So I watched likes like Jessica Rose Williams and Madeline Olivia and Athena Mella, and I liked aspects of all their work. So I just was like, oh, maybe I can show these bits. So yeah, I think my YouTube is essentially meant to just be like a little snippet of my life, of certain things that I know they like my audience likes to see. And especially I've sort of leaned into being, I did go through a phase of kind of being a little bit more edited, but because I've done more effort on Substack this year, I've kind of learned more into this day-to-day stuff, because I'm happy with where I am in terms of growth as well. I don't have any
like it feels like it's working, because you talked about that tipping point, that monetization point on YouTube, which I think is 1,000 subscribers, is it? When you get 1,000 subscribers, you can apply for the monetization. So it's super interesting to understand that sometimes when you get to a certain point, there can be a momentum, or there could be a post on Substack or a video on YouTube that goes viral, and then more people will come. And I'm always really interested in that network effect, both the crossover, but also within both platforms, that you are creating something and you kind of know how it's going to go, but there are always those surprises as well, right?
No, absolutely. There's some stuff I create that I think is almost a filler video or filler post, and that's the stuff that goes viral.
Right, yeah.
I put like so much into, and it's like meh. So I think, yeah, I know some things tend to do better than others, but I also try not to get too hung up on that in terms of like it could end up compromising like my enjoyment of it and feeling a bit inauthentic just to keep repeating things. I think that's something I was trying to do a bit more earlier on. So like my first video that went viral was actually the tour of our tiny home.
Yes.
Which it's
very satisfying content, isn't it? It's like start to finish, like what I've been wowed, like amazing.
Yeah, and it's really easy to film as well. Like that was, I think, my second ever YouTube video, and it took me about an hour to film it. And so it wasn't like super high quality or anything, but I think it's just interesting I love watching tiny home tours. But I think for a while that I thought maybe just everybody wants to see tiny home stuff, but so I kind of felt like I'd pigeonholed myself a little bit. So I ended up just sort of letting that go and being like, I'm just going to generally, I always found it very hard to balance a niche without pigeonholing yourself too much, because a niche can be great because it means your audience kind of knows what to expect from you, and obviously like the algorithm on YouTube in particular will be able to know where to put you. But I also think it can be a bit overly restrictive when you just like start doing stuff and then you get bored of it. It's quite difficult to then pivot out
for your creative license as well, isn't it? For that kind of, okay, that felt really cool and interesting to do, but like, what is another spin on that? There's only going to be so many spins of a tour, isn't there, of anywhere? Exactly. So it's like, what else, and how else can I kind of push that? And that is a really interesting thing about the Substack platform, because obviously we have video built into Substack, we have audio, we can plug photos in. So it is like blogging, and I have referenced it in that way to people to try and help them to understand it, but it can also be much more than that. And I know for those of us that are spending a lot of time creating work on the platform, it feels different to us depending on where we're meeting it. So wherever our creativity is and Substack meets that, it feels unique and different. And I'd love to know how it's feeling for you. I know you just launched your paid membership a month or so ago on there, and you'll have had a plan for that and all of that sort of stuff. So I'd love to know how Substack's meeting you and your creativity, and that membership bit of the picture that you've now introduced as well.
Yeah, I think Substack I've always really enjoyed. I think I came over, I'd never heard of it. It seems to be one of those things that you never hear of, and then suddenly you hear and you're like in, and you're like, how have I not heard of this for ages? But I'd really enjoyed writing it, and that's why I think it was quite easy for me to be consistent. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. I enjoyed working up the kind of like different type bucket, like content buckets that I kind of drew from. So I kind of have like my kind of slow stories, which is just general, more like personal things about going on in my life. I have my book specific stuff, I have stuff to do with my creative career, and I think that's what's different for me for Substack to YouTube. So I wouldn't publish probably anything on YouTube on how I make YouTube videos or anything like that, because I don't think my specific audience on YouTube really cares like that kind of detail. Whereas I think I'm on Substack, I think a lot of my audience are also creatives, writers, and that kind of stuff tends to do a bit better, and I love sharing that kind of thing. And then I just have my general like nature diary that I share on there, so it's a really nice mix of different content. And yeah, I'd known that I wanted some sort of paid membership pretty much from the start, but I just wasn't sure what I wanted, so I didn't put too much pressure on it. I just said I left my paid off, I didn't put it on at all. I just said let's just see how it goes, and I sort of thought it up and kind of to see what kind of audience it attracted. So that meant that by the time I was ready to launch, I already had a fairly big portfolio, you know, I had a decent side audience on there, and I felt like more confident in the kind of things I wanted to share, and also crucially the kind of things I wanted to share for my free subscribers as opposed to my paid, because that's the thing that I was like, I'm not sure how to make that decision. And I also, you know, Substack's in that time, in the year I've been on, it's changed so much. It's always, as you know, always evolving, always adding new features. And about that time, it also really upped its video features. And I knew I wanted to include a little bit of video content on my paid membership, because I do a monthly video. We call it our tea time chat about a specific topic. So in January, that was journaling, and I was sharing my journal and my approach to it and that kind of thing. So it was really nice to have a really like high quality video platform to work with for that. And then I also have, for my paid members, they have their slow scroll, which is like a monthly roundup of everything that I've been enjoying, a little bit of a sort of a newsletter on my month, but I'm also keeping it flexible and adding in things. So I want to add in a video review of all my winter reading, because a lot of my members really enjoy book content. So it's I think it's having a plan but remaining flexible to respond to what your audience is enjoying. Really, it's quite difficult to get that balance, but
and we can tell that to a certain degree on Substack, because the comments are very warm and friendly, aren't they, and generous, and so we feel like we can have a chat with people and we can see. And I don't know about you, but I'm often surprised, you know, just like, oh right, okay, like that's connected, and that particular thing they want more on, and that feels like a really nice space to be as a co-creator, because we've got this kind of live audience who are ready to tell us this is really resonating, or actually could you dig into that some more, or I'd love more of that. And sometimes I think we feel like we've got to do more and more variety, and actually sometimes it's deeper that people want.
Yeah, no, I found that definitely, and I think that's the difference with my membership, because I can go into a bit more detail than maybe some of the stuff that I just touch on. I think it's like a hierarchy. Like YouTube isn't massively deep. I still try and be authentic and share stuff, but it's a little bit more sort of overall kind of content. And then my Substack's always been the place that I can go a bit more deeper and feel more particularly with personal stuff, I feel safer like sharing that kind of thing, and like I've got an audience that wants that as well. And then for my paid membership, it's even more, so it's even more kind of behind the scenes and quite raw stuff that just not everybody wants that. Obviously not everyone's would join my paid membership, because not everyone is as invested, but for the people that are, it feels like a sort of like permission to go into a bit more depth. But I'm already like, because it's only been a few weeks that I've had this membership, I'm already like just asking for a lot of feedback and seeing what they're enjoying at the moment. They seem to enjoy everything, which is really lovely, but I'll continue to ask, because that's the best way. I love using polls as well on Substack.
Yeah, they work really well, don't they? I know, I really like them too, and I'm always really surprised what bubbles up in those and what people want to say in the comments as well as voting in the polls. I think it's super interesting. So you've gone from publishing on a Monday, every Monday, to then you still publish on a Monday, but are you paywalling sort of 3 out of 4, or how's it working?
I don't have a specific number in mind actually in what I paywall. I think it depends on the topic. I think so I'll have my at least 2 bits of content a month that will be exclusive, and then I think the way I'm looking at it is I'm also looking for like value added stuff within my Substack. So for instance, I wrote something about nature memoirs because it's a genre of books I enjoy reading, and about 2/3 of it was free, and then I put a paywall up for my specific book recommendations, because again, not everybody particularly cares about my specific book recommendations, but that's the kind of thing that I think my members would quite enjoy. So I quite like paywalling quite far down, at a point where it goes into that extra detail, basically. Like the same with my talking about having a low buy year and living frugally. I did like 2/3 of why I live frugally, what benefits it is, that kind of thing, and then a paywall how I like actually like go into depth and do a low buy year and how I'm doing it this year, step by step. So I think that's something that it means I'm still getting content out there freely available, which I think I like to do, because not everyone can afford their paid membership, but also it's important for growth generally as well, to continue to. I'm not at the point where I could paywall everything. I don't think I'd want to anyway. I still want to have stuff out there that's freely available as well.
And there's quite a lot in the archives as well. So if someone new finds your platform, there's quite a lot for them to read. I think sometimes it's hard for creators to manage that balance because they come to the Substack website and it's like a padlock on everything. So already it's showing them, well, that I've got pay to read that, pay to read that, pay to read that. But what you're saying is you've set out this kind of ethos and this essence of your work that people can actually get a lot of value. And there are another couple of creators that I work with that do that. And I do think that is a really, really special way of still holding the people that are there for free and not annoying anyone. And then also saying, but you can come on past as well. What's been really interesting to see with the shift of Substack, and this is relatively new within my community, is that people are saying that they're subscribed to too many things. So one of the things they're doing is curating that if they see a paid post and they're not a paid member, they'll just delete the post rather than going into it. But again, I think that is to do with capacity, because everybody seem to get really excited and supportive of lots of different writers and creatives, and then thought, oh no, like I've subscribed to so many people and I don't even know what to do anymore. What should I read? So it's like a filtering process. If someone sees paid or preview, they'll just be like, well, I'll just take that out of the reading list. Now, I don't think that's happening for everybody by any means, but it's really good to hear that it is working for you as a technique, to put people, obviously, to give people that value, but also to encourage people to come over to paid if they've been thinking about it or if they didn't know that you had a paid offering. And I think that's the thing, you know, there are all sorts of different approaches. And I know you just did a post this week where you were sharing how many people crossed over to come into the membership on, I don't know, a few different posts, didn't you? You were kind of sharing that. And I just thought that was so beautifully generous and transparent of you to say, this is how it's working for me.
Yeah, and I think when I write my when I'm talking about my creative career, I kind of think of the kind of questions I had. So that's not something I don't know if I'd seen it before, but I was like, it's quite useful to share, this every post, how many subscribers, and of that, how many free and how many paid it generated. Because it's fascinating to me. I love data and data crunching and stuff, and I was like, maybe that would be interesting to other people. And it does show that paywall, when it is there, it does work. But and I don't know what you think about, I know there's an option to archive your posts after a couple of weeks just for paid subscribers. I've chosen not to do that at present, I think, because a lot of it is I wrote that stuff never in mind of paywalling, so I kind of like to keep it freely available. And it also means, like you say, there's still be stuff, always be quite obvious non-padlock stuff when people like visit my Substack, which I think is quite nice. So I've not archived.
I did try it towards the end of last year and then realized that it's a bit of a pain because new people don't know where they are with that, you know. So I think I had it on after like 12 weeks, so a good chunk of time, knowing that things were going to then spill into that paid space. And everything has so much value in it. I was like, that feels fine to do. And then actually there were things like it's the kind of pinned post where I'm saying, hi, welcome, behind the paywall, and I hadn't realized.
Oh,
so I'm trying to say hello and welcome. And they're like, wait, what? Like, I've got to pay for it to say hello. So I've taken it off. And I think it was just that I was trying to get a bank of like real value for people that were arriving. And obviously when I was creating all of that between sort of July and December, it wasn't quite that. And then when I got there, I knew there was enough behind the paywall, but I sort of wanted there to be more so people could see. And actually then it just ends up to be too much. Like, people can only consume so much content. And if they're specifically interested in a tutorial that I've done or a post, I can see from looking at the data that they read those, but there's nobody going through and like looking at every single video and every single post. Like, it's just far too much now. So Yeah, no, it was interesting to try it. And actually, my colleague Russell Nolte had said about it, and he had exactly the same thing happen where it kind of worked and then just didn't. And it was just a pain and a wall to people being able to find what he wanted them to find. So, yes, we're in camp, not really for that one. But, anything can happen at any time. It's how you
Oh yeah,
organize it all, isn't it? And how
yeah,
people find you and then what they kind of, yeah, their little tour around and where that takes them.
definitely. And I think, I don't know about you, I find some of my older posts still get shared and stuff on notes,
Yeah,
and and that means that not every time, but sometimes that can generate a little bit of growth. But if that was paywalled, then they wouldn't be able to, not everyone would be able to access it.
for
And I also,
sure.
with my YouTube, in my description, I often have I always have my Substack linked, but I often have specific articles that are just relevant to what I talk about. And again, I don't want to pay all of those, just because people that have never seen my Substack, it's quite nice for them to come over and just sample a little bit of it straight away, rather than just be hit with a paywall straight away.
Yeah,
So
I think that's
yeah.
really lovely. I was looking for something on Pinterest at the weekend and I clicked on a blog link and it was just so many shouty adverts. And I just really wanted to read the text of what this
Yeah,
person was saying. And I was like, oh, that is such a lot. Like, I can't believe this is how we used to consume trying to read somebody's writing. And we did, there was definitely blogs that I would go on and just sort of ignore all those adverts. But it's so lovely on Substack just to be able to sit with the words and have those be received the way that we intend.
definitely. I really like the simplicity of the format. I think when I was publishing on my blog, I don't think I ever had adverts, but I was always a bit more conscious of having like a lot more photos and all this kind of stuff. Whereas on Substack, it's kind of just okay, just to have the words. I mean, I share
Mm,
always have at least one photo per post, but it's really nice, and that's how I like to read it as well. I don't like, it's even when I look up recipes and there's like all these adverts and I'm like, oh, I
yeah,
can't I
I
can't
think
cope
that's
with
it.
this.
It was a
Yeah,
recipe one, I think. Yeah. So it's quite nice for our nervous systems. It's quite nice for our kind of brain and the way that we can kind of come and just feel like, okay, like it's just me and that writer and we can spend some time there. I'm really curious about you having the two spaces online, Molly, and I know that you have a little shop as well. I've seen links to that as before as well, which I think is super, super cute. Like just being able to understand how that fits in, and that's obviously part of your portfolio. But I'd love it if you could share your screen with us so we can see how you have your YouTube, which is video content, a video channel, and then how you have your Substack, just for anybody that's completely new to understanding how these platforms can work together and how we're trying to cross promote, but also how those might also have separate audiences. If you could give us a little tour, that would be great.
yeah, of course. I'll just share my screen. Oh, it says host has disabled me from
Oh, well,
sharing.
I'll just make sure that you can do it then. That's fine. Multiple participants can share. That should be it.
Right. Oh, there we go. Let's
Just sing to
get that
yourselves.
out
Will be
the
a minute.
way.
There we go. There it is.
Okay, I hope you can see my YouTube.
Yes, you can see YouTube. I've got that lovely banner at the top, which is obviously part of your branding, and I recognize it. I think I've probably not clocked that so much because when I've watched your YouTube, I've watched it on my phone and it looks different,
Oh,
doesn't
right,
it,
I
on the
see.
desktop? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it never looks as good on whenever I design anything desktop than it does on your phone. But yeah, it's quite simple, but I think it kind of sums up. So on my YouTube, it's all under Hippie Highland Living, whereas I actually changed on my Substack recently my pen name to just my name, Molly
Mm.
Ella, just to make it a little bit separate from my YouTube, and also it's just broader. If it's just my name, then it's really very broad on what I can share, whereas this is a little bit more specific. So yeah, I have my banner up there, and then in terms of kind of videos, I always have YouTube gives you an option of choosing a trailer. So I try and choose one that's quite general to kind of sum up. So this was about how I changed my life since moving to rural Scotland, because I think people on my YouTube in particular really like seeing Scotland and the Scottish Highlands. Obviously,
Mm.
it's a lot more visual than Substack, so I'm into that. And then in terms of like kind of playlists, I've got stuff on Scottish Highlands, tiny home, frugal living, sustainable capsule wardrobe, books and reading. So these are kind of like a lot of my main categories that I like
Mhm.
to share on my YouTube. But
it's been 6 years since I moved
that's
to
my
there it is starting. You'll have to go and watch it. It is beautiful, actually, that one. I have watched it. It's gorgeous. I love all of your shots of nature. I just think I feel a lot of the time like I'm just there with you, and I'm sure that is some of the intention behind YouTube videos, to kind of take people with you, to show people. And I know you do so many different beautiful shots. There's detail shots, there's like landscape, wide angles, there's all that sort of stuff. It's gorgeous. So we can feel immersed in that world really quickly and easily and accessibly on YouTube. And look at your channel. You've got 45,000 people subscribed to watch, and it's incredible. That's an incredible amount of people, Molly.
I know, it's too
Isn't
many,
it?
really. It's a bit silly.
It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing. But I think some of the conscious choices you've made around this is me and this is my world, so sharing generously, but also this is a stunning world to be part of. Who wouldn't want to be part of it?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So
Well,
that's
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And then, sorry. And then you've got certain links that you have within those videos that send people to different places. So that might be Etsy store or Tmail, and then you've got your Substack there as well.
I'll bring up my latest video if you want. I can just show the the description. So my descriptions are usually fairly long. So this one, there's a bit of a branded thing at the top, but basically I talked about my slow living planner. So that's a link to my Etsy store. So I sell my own Notion templates, because Notion's just something I found in the last 2 years that I love. I'm a bit obsessed with it. So I sell my own templates that people can use that aren't that familiar with Notion. It's like an organizational tool, but all of it's to do with kind of stuff I talk about, like books and like food and slow living generally. So it's not like a huge number of products on there, and they're all digital, which is great because it just means that it's kind of, once you've got them up, they kind of just sell themselves. Obviously I promote them, but as in, like, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to make anything new.
So savvy. I love it. Yeah.
And then this is my paid membership, my journaling tea time in this video, so I linked to that. And then I had got like a watch next, and I don't think I had a read in here, but I often have, like I said, a read to send people over to my Substack as well. So I change this up for every video, but I try and have some things that I mention all the time. I always mention my Etsy, and I always mention my Substack in one form or another, which I think works pretty well.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because on Instagram, we've referenced this already, it is harder to move people off that platform specifically. And I do hear this a lot, and I do think it's an Instagram thing, because there's always more dopamine, there's always more rewards. Whereas if you've just watched a lovely YouTube video, you might, watch another one or another half of one, but you might actually go to another platform. I think that's totally possible. It just seems to be, you just seem to consume it in a different way. I mean, it might be age related, I don't know, but I have often gone from a YouTube channel and gone on to somebody else's like thing that they're sending me to, wherever that is online. I feel like you get that know, like, and trust factor really easily by kind of connecting to people's videos as well. It's a good thing to do.
I think so. I think with YouTube, or at least I don't actually do YouTube shorts myself, but with like traditional YouTube videos, they're obviously longer, it's longer form. I think you get more invested. I'm the same with just watching YouTube. I'm a lot more invested in, I'm not on Instagram at all anymore, but even when I was a lot more invested with the people I followed on YouTube than necessarily the people I followed on Instagram, just because I felt like I knew them a bit better.
It's less fickle for sure.
yeah.
So we could click over to your Substack, which you've got as Slow Scottish Stories by Molly Ellett. Okay, great. So branding wise, you can see that is so cohesive from one space to the other. And then we can hold people within the Substack platform as well. And like you say, people can share on notes and they can find what you're about. And so that at the top there, your tea time and your slow scroll, are they both paid spaces?
They're both paid. So I actually changed the format. So I used to have, if I scroll down, I have my sort of different categories of posts down here that I talked about. I've got my slow stories, my books, my slow creative career, and my Scottish nature journal. So I actually used to have those as my tabs up here. But I thought it actually worked better to have those on the homepage and have these. So there won't be many on there at the moment because I've only had a paid membership for the month, but have these for just my paid members. So it's just clearly kind of separates the two. And I don't know. And it also just meant this looked less busy up the top because didn't want to have too many links. It can sometimes be a bit overwhelming, so I left it simple to just those two, and then my about section. And then in terms of like my homepage, I pinned, this was like my announcement post for my paid membership, so I pinned that, and I've also pinned my kind of welcome thread for anyone that joins, and then the rest I've just left. This is just my latest one, so that's the latest one's always up there. I can't remember what format this is now. Is it newspaper maybe? I can't, because I know there's a few.
Yeah, there's three to choose from, isn't there? But then we've got some creative license around how we title those spaces that you scroll down to, and they can be tags or sections. So yeah, and I think it really works for what you're doing here as well. I think it's so inviting. And I found with my community over on Sparkle and Substack, people started referencing the live calls as the Sparkle call. So then I now call it the Sparkle call, because enough people said that. And it was like, that's what it is. So, you know, when you've got tea time, it's like, oh, you're going to Molly's tea time. It's like being able to create a space, a room, a place where people reference and they know what it is, and then they know where to find it. So that should work really well for you, I think.
Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, it's so new that I don't know, but I just think it is easily. And then also in my welcome email to paid subscribers, I link both these tags for them, so they can go straight into that
so
content,
they can find
and my welcome thread as well, just so that from that email they can go to those three things that are for paid members, so it's really clear and they can go straight into it.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Molly. And so thinking about where people have joined you over the last little while since you've started Substack, do you have a look at the statistics and see where people are mainly finding you? Like, are the people coming over from Google? Is it mainly within the Substack network? Is it a mix? Have you looked at that stuff?
Yeah, a wee bit. It's a bit of a mix. I'd say it's primarily what I'd probably expect, my YouTube and the Substack network. And I think I wrote this in my post about I gave the caveat when I launched my paid membership that I had a bigger audience on YouTube, which does draw people over, but probably not as much as you would think, because as much as it's still easier than it was Instagram to move people over, it's not as easy as doing it within the Substack network. I found that particularly like recommendations and stuff gives me like so much subscribers, and even if it's just members, even if it's just free subscribers, you know, that I think that's the first step in, isn't it? And then further down the line they might want to convert up to paid members. So yeah, I think it's I'm not sure exactly what the split is, but I know they're my top two like traffic draws, and yeah, that's kind of what I hoped for. So
yeah, that makes sense. And with recommendations, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I talk about it all the time, but I still don't talk about it enough, because people are still like, oh yeah, you know, I'll get to it. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, it brings hundreds of people over. Like, this is the cross promotion bit. And, you know, we might get to a capacity within that, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like new people are coming, and you find in Substack all of the time. Yes, there are sort of people that we would class as colleagues, but then there are readers coming over and they're really keen to just be readers on Substack. So it's a really great time to be using recommendations. I think it works so well. And it also really helps to just share with people, here's something that I think that you might like. And usually that resonates quite well, you know, and from what I've found.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I just think it's a lovely way to grow as well, like just to grow from that kind of genuine recommendation from an actual person rather than an algorithm, which can work. I know there's a lot of bad press for algorithms, but they can work, you know, they can work for you if you know how to use them, but it still feels quite, you're working with a kind of machine. Whereas on Substack, you know, with most of my growth coming from recommendations, essentially that's most of my growth coming from actual people liking my work and just sharing it, and it just feels a lot more authentic. And
it's
I love
way less random, isn't it, when you think about it? Yeah, it's just like there's a person recommending me, another person reads it and they hop on over. It sounds too good to be true, but that is what we're both finding. It does work. And the monetization side of it, obviously it is a tricky topic to go into money, but this is your job, right? Like every day you wake up, you've got your beautiful morning routine, watch it on YouTube, it's stunning. And then this is what you spend your days doing. And so when you turned on your membership, I have to reference, you know, the fact that you became a Substack bestseller really, really quickly. And you know, you being you were like, oh my goodness me, I can't believe this. This is so amazing. But of course, for us watching, looking in, it's like, well, of course Molly did that. That's incredible. She's got that supportive community. People want to be part of what she's got to offer. So that side of it, that, you know, that means 100 paid subscribers, and I know it'll be growing. Do you have goals around what that could be? Like, what will that enable for you? Will you do less YouTube? Will there be a different balance as you grow this space? What do you think?
I think potentially. I think when I went into this, I wanted to so my like Substack and particularly my members will be my priority going forwards, and that's mostly linked back to the fact that I've always thought long term, you know, writing is my main passion. I can't imagine I'll be on YouTube forever. At the moment, I still love it, so I've not got any plans to stop. But having a membership means that I don't have to be as consistent. I don't have to push as much on my YouTube, and I don't have to be getting loads of views all the time, which is like AdSense is one of my main income sources for people watching adverts on my YouTube. I don't have to be taking on as many brand deals. Again, that's another big income source on my YouTube. It just gives me that flexibility. And you know, over time, you see people on Substack, like Emma Gannon, for instance, makes a huge amount of money on just her Substack. And in fact, I think she says she makes as much or sometimes even more than her published books, which is mental. So I think there's so much potential with Substack, which is really exciting. But yeah, it just means that I can be more flexible with my other stuff. Which is kind of what I hoped for. So yeah, I was really pleased. Didn't think it would happen that quickly, but
it's great. And congratulations, because it's also it's social proof for the rest of Substack. And there's this really beautiful space of going, this was, you know, always in the back of my mind, and then it appeared and it felt just really warm and generous. And I was worried, and I don't know whether you've ever had the same worry, of how I would keep holding space the way I wanted to when more and more people were coming in. I wasn't sure how that was going to work, because sometimes my posts and people just comment, have a lot to say. So there were a lot of comments, and I want to reply to every single person. I see there's a person who's written something who wants to have a chat, and I want to reply. And there have been a couple of times where I'm like, I actually can't, like I can't now. And so that was always my worry as I grew my Substack. And then of course the platform changes and people are distracted in other places and stuff. But I wonder whether you've ever had any thoughts around how you hold that as you increase the volume of people that are finding you either free or paid, and what you would do about that.
Yeah, I think it's probably an underestimated, at least I underestimated how much time it takes just to respond to comments. And I found already quite a lot of, because I'm like, oh, these people are paying now, you know, these people are paying for my sort of me to respond to them and my content, that kind of thing. So I was a little bit like, what if I miss one comment, and getting a bit over worried about it. I never used to reply to comments every single day. I used to space it through the week. I found that I was doing it even at the weekends, because I felt quite like pressured, not from my community, though I don't think at all, it was more for myself. But I've actually decided to like let that go a little bit. So I think I still respond to at least 90% of comments, and there's certain things I keep an eye on, like my welcome thread. That's something that I never want to miss a comment. So I just check in there every couple of days to see if there's a new member in there that has left a comment, because that's something that I can actually say hello and we can start conversations and stuff. But when it comes to like older posts, you know, after a few weeks, I pretty much stop responding to comments, because I just don't have capacity to do so. But I think that's understandable. I think that's what I'll have to take
it
forward.
Is, and it's really generous of you to share that, because I'm still at the point where I'm like, oh, how am I gonna do this, you know? It's hard, it's really hard. I don't want anyone to feel that I've missed them or anything like that. I mean, I have got a couple of sort of techniques around this. I've been really curious about when people turn commenting off. You know, just leaning into it. I've not done it. But I've been really curious about that. And then I've also been able to hone in on how many emails and notifications do people need, because I'm like you, like I want to be really measured about how much I'm showing up for people. I don't want people to like forget or miss things, but there's only so much that I can do, you know, once I've got the dates out there. So when I do my live videos, I actually change the post that the reminder post, if you like, that's got a lot of value in it, that also goes out to free subscribers. I change that into a paywalled post, and I put the replay video in there, and then I remind people the next time we're in chat, that's where it is, for the new people. And that's felt really good to do that, because otherwise it would be another post with another set of comments, and it's actually the same thing, like it's the same topic, whatever we've delved into that month. So that did really, really help. And then I feel like there's still this really interesting space of observing, like you say, people like Emma who are flying, people like Farah, who is head of UK partnerships at Substack and is also really generous in her community behind the scenes and runs a 6-figure newsletter here on Substack. So there's something about leaning into how people are managing that and understanding that that is what works for them, but we have to also come back to what works for us. So I'm really glad that you said that you're sort of letting those older posts with the comments and new comments, just letting that go.
Yeah, and I think that's understandable. It's the same with my YouTube, if it's, I have to be even, I get more comments on my YouTube, but I get more in-depth comments on my Substack, so it probably equals out in terms of time spent, because I feel like if someone's written me a really thoughtful comment, I don't just want to be like, thanks, like I want to write something
like it's like
back.
it's a conversation. And I guess YouTube's a different
style. And I think particularly if it's something quite vulnerable. So I wrote recently about my decision not to be a mum, which was vulnerable for me, but it also meant that a lot of the comments from women were quite vulnerable as well, so I really didn't want to leave them hanging. So I think it depends on the post as well in that case. That's the kind of post I have to keep an eye on for longer, see if there's any new comments, whereas others, I don't know, that maybe I'm not expecting to get as many comments. So maybe my nature journal, like after a week or so I don't really go in, because the comments are lovely, but they're not like, don't need as much from me, I feel. I think it's just like saying they liked it.
There's like a tone there, isn't there, and a space holding in one tone of post, and then a sort of it's an update in another tone of post, isn't it? This is what's happening here, and people just witnessing that they're really pleased that you did that or shared that or whatever. That's super interesting. Brilliant. So what's next for this year? What have you got planned for this year on Substack? I just want to ask you that before we go.
At the moment I'm still kind of just getting used to having a paid membership, but I think continuing with my current content, I might like to add new things in there. I've considered doing some live events, but I considered doing those when I thought I'd have a smaller membership. And now it's bigger than I intended. I'm like, maybe I would do that. I might want to look into doing a bit more collaborative. This has been really fun. I know you're great at collaborating and stuff like that.
I love it. It's so fun.
I've never really got put aside the time, because it's take a bit of time, put aside the time to do, but I would like to do more of that, and definitely explore more video stuff on my Substack, particularly with my paid members, because that's my way of kind of transitioning maybe some of the stuff that I do on YouTube over a little bit more, and I think I'm definitely gonna see where I'm at in 6 months to a year in terms of where I'm at energy wise, where I'm at capacity wise, where the money's coming in, to see how much I'm gonna put into both. So I've got a full content calendar full of ideas.
I love it. They're all there waiting, and then when you get some energy from the sunshine, which will be on the way really soon when springtime comes, you can see what else grows from that. I think it's really interesting, the live thing, because we have different time zones. So because Substack put mainly energy into America to start with when they first launched the platform, it's based there. There's a lot of American writers and readers, and then I've got quite a lot of Australian as well, and some folks in New Zealand. So obviously we can see our lovely subscriber map. So what it's meant for me on the live calls is, if I do 9:30 in the morning, which really suits me, it's mainly the Aussies that come over in their evening and the UK folks, some people from Europe as well. So it would be it's like 250 members on Sparkle, and it would be like 3 pages of Zoom, if that makes sense. But then over on Creatively Conscious, there's just over 50 members there, and I only ever get about 3 or 4 people that come to Circle, and the rest will catch up So it's
interesting.
super interesting how it
Yeah.
works. And then obviously I try and balance the time zones out. So I have another call that is in the afternoon. So the American folks, it's like their morning time. And then yes, Europeans can join in as well. But people have been really, really curious about those replays, and like as long as I can get the replay, it's fine, because I thought, well, I'm only ever going to get people that feel like they're getting enough value, and I had to work out what that was going to be. And I always wanted to do 2 live calls a month, but I can't do evenings. I'm too tired. The kids are too wild. I just can't. So I just couldn't have made it work. And people will have said, yeah, evenings would be great. And I don't know if I ever will, because I am just quite a tired person in the evenings. I'm much more a morning person. But yeah, I think it's like anything, like it's fun to experiment. It's fun to be really honest and say, I don't know how this is going to pan out, but shall we do it together? You know, that just feels like we're not being expected to run sort of some sort of super tight, super professional online course for people. It's a membership, right? So it's like, come into my world, let's talk. We're going to go into this topic, and then there'll be time for questions at the end. I always try on Creatively Conscious, stop the recording and then sit with the people that have made it live as well. And it's always so beautiful. And I literally feel like I can't leave, because it's so amazing to like be in that space with people all around the world that have made the effort to come to the workshop or whatever it is that I've offered. So yeah, you'll enjoy it, I think, if you do decide to do it.
No, I'm sure I will. Like, it's been lovely chatting with my members, like even just on the thread and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely something that I would explore. But I like your approach, you sort of just doing it and see what works, rather than having the pressure of this being really polished thing. And I'm the same, like a lot of my subscribers are based in America. Like,
I bet,
I think UK's top, but only just the rest of the US. But that's mostly because that reflects my YouTube. I think it's the same over there. So yeah, I was like getting a bit of a fuddle about what the time zones would be. But yeah, I think it's just, you have to just do what you can do. And like you say, like I watch replays. I enjoy watching replays. Like I don't feel, you know, necessarily that I have to be at the live, whatever it is, you know. So yeah, no,
it depends on your energy that week as well, doesn't it? Because sometimes I might have the intention to come along live, and then I've been on Zoom a little bit, or things have been, you know, one of the kids is ill or something, and I'm like, actually a replay would be really lovely for me and for my energy, and just to know that I'm held in spirit, but actually I can catch up later and just be like on my own terms with that, and not have to be fully present in that way. It is really quite magic what we can do, isn't it, these days? It's so good. Well, thanks so much, Molly. It's been so brilliant. So if you didn't catch the name of Molly's Substack, it is Slow Scottish Stories. Yeah. And then over on YouTube,
it's Hippie Highland Living.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's so beautiful. So, and then the other things that we mentioned that Molly offers, they're often linked in the posts that she does either on YouTube and on Substack. So she's got this beautiful clothing line and these Notion templates that you can go and check out. And also I joined Skillshare because of Molly, because I've been learning bits and bobs about YouTube, and there was somebody who I was really curious about, and Molly had recommended him, and so I was like, right, I'll dive on over there. And I think just to say that makes such a difference to online creators, because it can be as much as 50% sometimes, these referral fees, and that all adds into you being able to live the life that you want to live and feel really supported. So yeah,
I often have a discount 1 month free trial link from I work with Skillshare a lot. They're great to work with in my YouTube in particular, but I mention it in my Substack a lot. But yeah, I mean, I can only continue working with Skillshare because people keep signing up to it, even just to the free trial.
Oh, so, great. That's good to know. I need to get back on there and have a bit of a look around. I think I've done about 3 or 4 courses, but I do love courses. I'm a big fan. It's such a beautiful thing to do. And I tend to do it on a Tuesday morning. So I've had my big Monday in my week, and then I'll just do a bit of a sort of Tuesday morning. I'm just going to do a bit of learning, like slow the pace down. So yeah, big fan of that. Well, thank you again, Molly. It's been so lovely to speak to you this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else you put out into the world. I always love your content, and I'm so glad that you could be here at Sparkle on Substack and chat with everybody.
Oh, thanks very much, Claire. It's been great.